Welcome everyone, it's your Heroscape here today, coming at you with a first of its kind reaction video. It's just going to be quite simple. We're going to be watching Tabletop Bros' Heroscape video that he did in regards to Renegade and the Age of Annihilation. We've got some content to cover, so we're going to watch it, and as we're watching it, I'm going to provide some opinions and feedback of different pointers that he makes. So without further ado, let's jump right in and get to talking. Alright, so here we are, so let's jump right in.
It turns out there's a cure for depression. It's called exposing corporate bullshit. And there's been a lot of corporate bullshit flying around the internet today, especially in the very niche miniature wargaming community. Now, of course, I'm talking about one wargame specifically. It's Heroscape. If you don't know what Heroscape is, it's this incredibly accessible wargame that was discontinued about 13 years ago.
This is a really cool video.
Picked up by a company called Renegade Game Studios.
I love that.
Now, I have been very pro Renegade in all of my coverage of this game, as you can see if you look at any of my videos. But this morning, someone on Reddit exposed them for doing some pretty shady shit. Someone posted on the Heroscape subreddit this morning a bit of a leak about the playtesting process. And over the course of the day, multiple people who've been in contact with various playtesters can affirm that this is pretty accurate. So
this is really interesting. I actually had not known about this a few days ago now that this was posted, this Reddit post. I didn't know about it. I came on later the day and checked Discord, and I saw a bunch of conversation about stuff, and it had the conversation had kind of carried on past this initial thing, and so I actually didn't really know what was being conversated about, or rather, I knew what was being conversed about. I didn't realize they were referring to the Reddit post because it had been taken down 2 hours after it was posted. And so I didn't actually know about it until I saw this video, and I realized, oh my gosh, that's actually way more concrete, way more legit than I thought. Because originally on Discord, and Shiftrex correctly called me out. I said, oh, there's nothing concrete about it, really. You know, I'll cover it when it was relevant. But I actually talked to Tabletop Bro, and the thing he just mentioned there was that throughout the day, he's had contact with people involved in the playtesting, and he confirmed with me as well that he's been in contact with people who have been part of the playtesting, and confirmed this information that it is accurate. Now, he hasn't been in touch with the person that wrote the Reddit post, but the people that are part of the playtesting can confirm what they're reading is accurate. So this is pretty important stuff, because it's not just some rando dude. Well, I mean, I guess technically it could be, right? I mean, but what he's saying is that other people have confirmed him. Multiple sources have confirmed that what the Reddit post said is indeed accurate, which I think is important to recognize, because a lot of this is just fairly, oh, well, we'll find out when Renegade comes to us. Oh, well, we don't know what they're actually saying is true. Okay, but when you have multiple sources kind of confirming it, then you start to want to take it for what it is. It seems to be legit. So let's view that with this filter, that what they're saying seems to be accurate. And I mean, that's how I'm viewing it anyway. I mean, I trust multiple sources, and I trust Tabletop Bro, who's talked to those people who are part of the playtesting. So moving on.
Let's just get into what they said. Of course, there's the obligatory, this is a throwaway account, but it really starts with regarding backwards compatibility. The Heroscape units that Renegade is currently developing are backwards compatible as they use the same rule set. Renegade is, or was, not playtesting with any classic Heroscape, and balancing new units with classic units is not something they care about. Now, this is of course a big faux pas.
So, I mean, he's going to get into this in a second, but that's... I want to talk about I've got some other opinions about this, but I want to talk about this a little bit. But basically, you have to playtest units that synergize with each other within Age of Annihilation, right? But not involving original Heroscape at all is the problem, because the game already exists. It already has point values, it already has balance, it already has a meta. That said, I'm going to talk about this later, but I think I know why they're doing this. So let's see what he has to say.
big benefits of Avalon Hill's campaign was that they wanted to make sure everything was backwards compatible with classic Heroscape. I mean, it just kind of makes sense. It doesn't invalidate anyone's collection. Of course, the inverse also makes sense from a greed standpoint. If all of the old units are now outdated because the new units are so much better, then you're going to buy the new units. But it doesn't really make sense from a sort of, buying goodwill with the community. Of course, this is 2023, where Wizards of the...
So, I want to make sure that you understand that point, because that was a really, really good point by Tabletop Bro. I really like what he said. Basically, if you have units that are way too good, right, in Age of Annihilation, then everyone's just going to buy that. Like my collection is moot, right? If they make Raylan 3.0, who has an aura of seven spaces and can give +3 defense, just because they want to, well, there's no reason for me to ever play Raylan from Rise of the Valkyrie, right? And that's just, that's one way they could do it, right? They could quite literally just make everything kind of OP, really, really strong, and then everyone will buy it, because it's Heroscape. So, of course, I want to, succeed, and I love the game, so I guess I'm going to have to buy the strong stuff. If you make it not do the Heroscape, like, they've already confirmed it's going to be backwards compatible, so technically you can play Heroscape with other Heroscape. They've confirmed that. But if you don't make it synergistic at all, if you make it completely disconnected in terms of balance, then what he was saying is that basically invalidates everyone else's collections. Whether it's high on the power curve or low on the power curve, it invalidates someone's collection, right? If it's not balanced. So if it's really strong, it invalidates all the people that have collected for the last 20 years Heroscape, right? If it is low on the power curve, so if they come in and build Age of Annihilation so it's unbalanced in the sense that it's too weak, then any event where we run classic Heroscape with Age of Annihilation Heroscape, anybody running the new stuff is just going to lose, right? And the issue with that is, well, okay, Renegade doesn't want to lose money, and they need to make money on Age of Annihilation, so if the units are weak, and I go into the game store as a new player, and I buy a new pack off the shelf, because I love Heroscape, or I just heard about Heroscape and I want to play, and I go to this tournament, I sit down, open my pack, and set it on the table, and then I get rocked by a bunch of units I've never seen before. And then I say, oh, where can I get those? And then I tell you, only on eBay, and then it's $40 a squad. So, there's some issues here. You make them too weak, no one's ever going to want to play. That's new to the game. So, there's incentive to make them really strong. But if you make them really strong, you make your money, but you make a lot of people pissed off. Because that's a lot of collections that get removed. So, it's a catch-22 by Renegade. The solution, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, balance it. Make it balanced. Make it so that you can play either. But OG Heroscape exists. And so balancing it against 250, 300, or whatever other units takes time and a lot of understanding of the game, both of which Renegade does not have. Quite honestly, they don't have the understanding that the War Council did in Avalon Hill in their ability to design units, and they don't have the time. They've got a short window, right? A few months. So, let's keep watching.
The coast laid off all of their staff, and who cares about goodwill with the community anymore, right? To be fair, I don't think Renegade ever specifically said that the units would be perfectly backwards compatible and that they would be balanced. But it's not a great look. The second thing they said had to do with Age of Annihilation. Age of Annihilation is kind of what they're calling the relaunch, and it's what Avalon Hill called the relaunch last year during their failed HasLab campaign. Most, if not all, of the designs that Avalon Hill and the AOA War Council worked on have been scrapped or gone through massive redesigns. Now, a quick caveat here, the War Council are actually a group of the community who've been making VC units for like the past 13 years. VC is basically like the official, unofficial customs project. It's kind of how we've kept this game alive over the past 13 years that it's been dead. It's super cool. All the units are freaking sweet. Highly recommend. These guys know their stuff. They've been designing for this game for 13 years. Anyways, where was I? Don't assume that the cards we will see will look like the ones Avalon Hill showed us if Renegade stays on this trajectory. Developing 70 plus units in this period of time is a big ask from an experienced designer, and the new team does not have experienced Heroscape designers. Also, something that just makes zero sense to me, like, just from a business standpoint. Avalon Hill basically gifted Renegade a fully finished game that all they had to do was just print. They didn't have to do any work into redesigning, and it doesn't really make any sense why they're doing this. Still though, even though this is kind of a stupid business decision, they can do this. It is not objectively egregious, it's just subjectively egregious. I really like the Age of Annihilation units, I don't know why they're redesigning it. Where it starts to get really egregious is in the playtester selection section. When selecting playtesters, familiarity with Heroscape
So let's go back to that in a second.
Tester selection section. Get really egregious.
So let's go back and talk about what he just said. So really good point, right? His point there is spot on. It really makes no sense at all that the game was designed and finished and handed to Avalon and just said, just print it, make your money. The game's done, take it, print it, make your money. So that's that. I mean, it is pretty bonkers. I mean, from a business perspective, like he said, it doesn't make sense. From a community perspective, like my opinion on that is, as a if I were a member of Renegade as a designer, I would not want to kill myself over trying to design for a game I didn't understand or I had limited knowledge of competitively and balance wise. Within a few months. Like, I wouldn't, if someone had done the work for over a year, a team of like 10 people that had playtested, designed these units, synergized these units for over a year, I would not want to be the designer or the playtester or the member of the Renegade team that has to redesign everything. Like, that makes no sense. And that makes a lot of sense why this person, sounds like left the playtesting, and from what I've heard, from multiple sources, other people have left the playtesting, is because of the inability to really see common sense, right? I mean, if as a project manager, say, if I can see that someone has been working on a project, and I come in as a new project manager, even though you've been working on it for a year, wouldn't it be in my best interest to trust that you've been with the company or with whatever you've been doing it for a year? Now, I might have my own perspectives. I might want to tweak a few things. We get that. But it sounds like this is a full redesign. This isn't just a couple tweaks. This isn't changing a life point by one or two. This isn't changing the wording slightly or maybe the title of a power. It sounds like this is redesigning 70 plus units, which, if that's the case, then we really have to call out Renegade for what it is. Being stupid. I mean, man, I know what it's like to be a member of the C3V and playtest and design units over the course of years. It takes time. It takes a lot of consideration. It takes a lot of effort to really think about the powers and the abilities and the synergy and the complexity of the synergy web. There's a lot of things you have to take into account. There's a lot of powers that have to be tweaked and worded just so in order to make sure that any interactions between other powers aren't messed up. And when you have inexperienced designers deciding to redesign a lot of the units that took over a year to design, you kind of have to pull into question just some of the common sense of these people and what they're thinking when it comes to actually trying to produce a good quality game, to be completely honest. And I'm calling them out because people have been posting about this on multiple locations, Reddit, and I think they posted on Facebook and a couple others. And man, they were ripping down those those forums, those threads as quickly as they came up. They were trying not, and they haven't commented on it at all officially. They have these allegations they haven't responded to. Well, you take down the post and then you don't respond to them. That's really interesting. So anyway, that's getting off into the weeds a little bit. Based off of what I was just listening to here, though, that's kind of my opinion on what was being said. So let's move on. He went to the next point here.
Is in the playtester selection section. When selecting playtesters, familiarity with Heroscape was not important. Playtesters were selected based on their familiarity with games Lee and Rowan previously worked on. Lee is the head producer of Renegade and Heroscape, and Rowan is the lead designer. Now, this is the one bit that people in the community over the course of the day's discussions couldn't necessarily confirm. Every other point here, though, has been confirmed by people who are on the playtesting team. Now, the next bit is
Yeah, since the beginning, something that's always concerned me is just the fact that they have very limited knowledge about Heroscape, right? Lee was hired a few months beforehand. Rowan has worked on, games for Renegade, but, while they both technically have played Heroscape and have design and game knowledge, Heroscape ain't like any other game. There's a reason it survived after being dead for 13 years. Now, a lot of that's the community, but it's also the game system, the way the game works. And if you were to go and read a rule book, that would tell you functionally how to play the game, and that's it. And I feel like when you have one designer, one lead designer, and one lead producer, you're going to be stuck in a silo, right? You have to bring on a big old team like the War Council with multiple people familiar with the game competitively, specifically who have designed for the game, to really get a sense of what you need to do. And so that, and that's one thing. But then playtesting is the next thing. So when you have Rowan and Lee leading the designs and not having very limited experience, then you'd expect, okay, well then they'll get playtesters who are highly experienced with Heroscape, who can then provide the necessary feedback to say whether or not the design is relevant. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like they did that. It sounds like they got some very inexperienced people, or rather people that maybe are experienced in gaming or playtesting, but inexperienced in the game itself. You take the best chess player in the world, and you tell them the rules of Heroscape, sure, they can pick it up and start playing. Are they going to know all the implications of all the different units and all the different synergies and all the different, ways that the units need to be balanced? Absolutely not. Now, Magnus Carlsen, the best, smartest person in the world for chess, he ain't going to be able to figure out Heroscape, in a couple months and play it at the highest level. Now, who knows? Maybe he can. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But you get my point, right? Is that there's just a unique understanding of the game for people that have played it and designed for it for 13 years. So the fact that both designers and playtesters are stuck in their own silo with not experienced, okay, we'll see how this goes.
Insanely egregious, and just they need to fix this like yesterday. Clashing with playtesters. After playtesters were selected, they were given freedom to construct their own playtesting group.
Okay.
One group contained or invited members who had worked on every major customs project in the Heroscape community. C3V, SOV, C3G,
okay. So they
AOTV,
did. There were some people with experience.
I know those acronyms don't really mean anything to you, but it's a great pedigree. The makeup of this group changed several times. Why? Experienced designers / players jumped in, saw the quality of the designs Renegade had produced, realized their feedback wasn't being received, and left. This group was later dismissed from playtesting entirely and told that their constructive criticism was abusive. Another group had a member or members of the AOA War Council present, but they also jumped ship after their feedback wasn't received.
Wow.
What is even the point of playtesting if you're not going to take any of the negative feedback that your playtesters give? People in the Heroscapers group have been in contact with some of these playtesters, and everyone says that nothing was abusive, it was just constructive criticism. They didn't like the way that the game was going. Apparently that is considered abusive if these allegations are to be believed, which there are a lot of people saying they should be. Finally, there is the design quality.
Wow.
Playtesters
So we'll get to the design quality section here in a second. I'll leave it up, whatever. I'm not reading it, but yeah, that's a big deal. I had forgotten that piece. So it sounds like they actually did bring up a few members of the War Council. So I correct my statement. They did add a few playtesters, it sounds like, and it sounds like they were on different groups. So I don't know, we'll just say 100 playtesters. I'm just throwing out a random number. It sounds like they did groups, right? So maybe, I don't know, groups of 10, groups of 5 or 6 or whatever. And it sounds like there were a few different members of the War Council, or who had been just in general, good custom designers that were on a few of those teams. And because those teams didn't take their feedback, criticism, and just kept moving on, and were saying, "Hey, you're being abusive. Hey, you're being you're being too critical. Hey, they're just like, okay, hands off. Like you guys don't want to listen to me. I've designed for the game for the last X number of years. Hey, you don't think I know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, I guess I'm gone. That's weird. That's bizarre. That's very toxic. That seems very odd to me. I don't know how Renegade can be in a place, like mentally and organizationally, to dismiss your playtesters and your playtesting groups when there's criticism or feedback or constructive feedback or just any pushback. Like, playtesting, the purpose of playtesting is to create friction, is to say, hey, this is how this unit breaks this unit. Let's fix it. Hey, this dude's way OP. We gotta change things. Hey, this dude's too weak. We need to make him stronger. Hey, this chick over here, she can't get anywhere at such low movement or with low life. Her abilities are really cool, but you can't actually do the ability until, XYZ, right? Or, this, beast or whatever would be better as a champion because blah, blah, blah. It's just so broken. It makes no sense. Exactly what he was saying. So that is interesting to me, especially because they specifically confirmed there's C3V, SOV, like all the different people that have been part of the customs communities. I feel like those people should be the most important to listen to. Now, being a member of those things doesn't make you any more important than anyone else. Absolutely not. It doesn't make you more important than the random Joe that joined the playtesting team. But what it does is it gives, I think, your perspective. Well, I guess I am making it sound like it is more important. So I don't know. I guess, okay, fine. I guess that's what I'm saying. I guess I would say that yes, that person's perspective is more important. Now, it's not, I guess it's not necessarily going to hold more weight. I mean, if you've got a group of playtesters, and you're voting on something, or you're trying to move forward with the designs, you can't go based off of a full 100%, consensus. You have to kind of go off of, majority or what everyone feels is the right path. We do that in playtesting. We would prefer that everybody have a unanimous vote when we playtest units, but there's sometimes where there are people where, a few detractors. And, we go off of making sure that I think it's like 75% votes or 80% votes or something like that have to pass the design. So basically the major majority, right? The high majority. Which allows designs to move forward, right? Allows people to also have their reservations about a unit. And so when you have experienced members, and I guess I'll just say it, whose opinions are more important. I'm just going to say it. When you have members of the community who have been a part of the community for 13 plus years or however long, have playtested, have been a part of it, and inherently they're going to know more than you. I'm sorry. There are some people in this world that have more knowledge, have more experience, have more insight, have more understanding in certain subjects. That's just the truth. And if these guys can't get through to the playtesting teams the importance of certain interactions or designs or whatever, and they're basically disbanded and kicked off by Renegade, I'm just like, oh shoot, then we're in a heap of trouble, man. It's okay. I don't know about that. So anyway, let's move on.
Spoken to have described the in-process designs as troubling, amateur, and garbage. Now, maybe if they were telling the team that the designs were garbage, I could kind of see an abuse case there, but even still, that's kind of egregious. Now, what made this incredibly sketchy is that the Reddit thread that the leak was on was taken down within 2 hours, which is...
going back to what he was saying, the design process, people were saying, oh, it's, garbage, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's obviously not very much detail there, right? It's pretty subjective, kind of random, words. Anyway. My thought on that is it makes sense, right? When you have a new member of the community, bless their heart, who decides to make their own customs. Very often, and I did this as well, you make those customs and you put on the card the words that make sense to you on how the ability operates. For example, if I were to say, Sir Jojo or whatever, so Sir Jojo, we'll just say, is a character I'm creating, and he has this ability, or whatever the ability, some movement ability, and we say Sir Jojo, and early on in my customs, days when I would kind of write out how I thought power should work, I would literally write down on the card, Sir Jojo gets to move 5 spaces. Then after he moves 5 spaces, he gets to move 3 spaces. Once he finishes his movement, he gets to attack 2 times, or something like that. So that's how the ability works. And that's how I would write it down. And a lot of new members who want to get into customs, who want to get into designing, who love Heroscape, will write abilities that way, right? It's very simple. It makes sense. Does that sound like Heroscape to you? Does it? Does it have the verbiage? Does it have the different clauses and the different, important keywords to help you understand how that actually interacts? Now, a better way to word that in a Heroscape-y language would be something like, Sir Jojo may use X power once per round. After moving normally with Sir Jojo may move an additional 3 spaces. Now that's not a huge difference, but it's not a conversational way that the ability works. Now when I'm explaining it to you, I would tell you, oh, Sir Jojo gets to move 5 spaces, because that's his normal movement, and then he gets to move 3 spaces, and then he gets to attack 2 times. So if I'm explaining that to you, that's how I would say it, but that's not how it's worded in the power. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to point out here is that new designers will design like they're conversating with someone, like they're explaining how an ability works, like they want to make sure you understand exactly how it operates. The problem with that is that Heroscape has an established language. It has an established keywords. It has established abilities and how we word abilities. When we word abilities in the C3V with new designs, we say, okay, what's the closest ability that mirrors how this ability activates? And then we want to word it like that, so that the wording and the key words can be used to determine how they interact with each other. So, for example, abilities that have the word may is a huge difference than the words that say must, right? Because it says you may move indicates that you have the option to. You must move is a requirement, is a condition that has to be met. And so that has interactions, that has implications between units that just change the game, right? When you have one word change. There's different clauses that are really important, right? So, like you may use this ability once per round, or you must use this ability, or you can only use this ability, right? There's the verbiage itself is just very specific in Heroscape. And Cytail, who's been a member of the community for so long, is like the best person in the community, other than maybe Quazzle and Doc, I guess. They're all on the same editing team. To really analyze and understand Heroscape at its core when it comes to verbiage, editing, and the implications of power text. And so what I anticipate this comment saying, what I infer from this comment is that these players, or these playtesters, these people writing this post, or who can confirm that this is accurate, are seeing designs coming in that are just like your new custom designer, right? With just the wording all, not using Heroscape language, the clauses that don't align. And my guess is very inaccurate ways of presenting the power text. The other thing too is that when you're considering interactions and order of operations, the power text is extremely important to get right when you're talking about the way that you operate different units getting to do something first or second. So some units, like I think it's the Zombies of Mirindon, it says, if you destroy a unit with their, when you destroy a unit, you immediately place a zombie in the place that you destroyed a unit. Well, other units have abilities that say you must immediately, or after you're rolling defense dice, you may roll to protect yourself, right? Okay, well, like the Microcore agents. Microcore agents have stealth armor. After they take a wound, you may roll to save them. So the order of operations is really important because the zombie kills you, technically, but you actually get to roll for stealth armor first, because stealth armor is indicating after you take a wound, but zombies don't get to respawn until they destroy you. Well, stealth armor precedes the destroying because it's after taking a wound and before removing the figure. So a zombie attacks, deals a wound, you get to use stealth armor to save yourself, and so because you save yourself, you don't get destroyed. Now if you don't save yourself and then you get destroyed, then the zombie ability activates and you get to replace the zombie. So that's just an example of order of operations. With poor verbiage, with poor design, with the way that power text is worded and Heroscape language is used, if you're not taking into consideration order of operations for new powers and new designs, and when you're creating like multi-life squads, or you're creating new design space with all these different interactions and different unit types, having the understanding of the Heroscape language is absolutely necessary, 100%. And the quality of the design is going to really turn people off if I can look at a card and be like, oh yeah, a baby wrote that. Someone that doesn't know anything about Heroscape, right? So I'm belaboring the point here. I've spent too much time on it already, so I apologize. But this one actually really concerns me. It was the smallest text, right? It was like a one-liner, but one that I've talked about the most now because I've been a part of that process in the C3V, and it's amazing to watch. Other designers and editors who just know this stuff inside and out, just such incredible work they do. And it just sounds like Renegade is squandering the opportunity to involve the community and also to listen to people that know what they're talking about. So let's move on.
Is that the Reddit thread that the leak was on was taken down within 2 hours, which is just unbelievably suspect. If they truly had nothing to hide, then they would leave it up and they would be able to tell everyone, hey, this isn't true, but they took it down. Now, I don't actually know who moderates the Heroscape subreddit. I'm guessing it isn't anyone affiliated with Renegade, but even still, if you're taking down discourse like this, that's troubling. Now, I understand there's definitely a line, because the discourse got really freaking bad last year, and I had to, go touch grass, and I didn't want to talk about this game anymore because it was so gnarly. But still, these are legitimate complaints, and if you're taking it down, that's sus. In fact, the only reason that you're even seeing this is because I took screenshots of it before it was taken down from Reddit, because I had a strange feeling that this would be taken down.
Tabletop Bro, thank you. Because I was thinking that when I was first watching this, I was like, oh man, how did I miss this? How come I didn't get screenshots? What's going on? Yeah, it's taken down in 2 hours. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that you took it to heart and said, hey, I gotta be smart. I gotta take pictures of this and make sure that we can document this. Absolutely. Thank you. This is important stuff.
Shared it with a couple of people in the SoCal Heroscapers group, and one of them shared it to Facebook, where it was almost immediately taken down. And of course, I'm not even trying to talk about it in the Renegade Discord because I would probably get banned. They very much do not want to hear any sort of negative feedback. But then the tables turned. In the Heroscapers Discord, I said that I got the feeling that nobody from Renegade really gave a shit about the game except for maybe Rowan. Then, Lee Huff, the head producer, said, I have plenty of them for Heroscape. 100. I left a job I love to work on a game I absolutely adore. Which, goddamn bro, World Star, way to make an entrance. People then asked her, hey, what is your opinion on these allegations? What's going on here? And she didn't even deny anything, but she didn't really say much of anything. The only thing she really said is that it's on their radar and that she's going to escalate it because she cares about being kind. Now, hopefully...
So, this is interesting because this is actually where I come into the story. I guess I don't come into the story, but those Discord messages there, that's what I was seeing. So, I was pretty late to the party, and so I saw kind of some of the conversation, and she was kind of saying, oh, okay, I'll let people know, and I was just kind of like, oh, what went on? And I was trying to figure it out by scrolling back through the Discord. Couldn't really figure it out because it had been a whole day of people talking, and I couldn't find the Reddit thread and all. So it was very confusing, and I didn't really understand what was going on. So first off, again, thank you, Tabletop Bro. Great video. It's helping kind of pull it all together. So yeah, I paused it at the perfect time too. There you go. Hey. Anyway, so yeah, so that's that. This is, and I'd forgotten about this as well. This is good. The fact that the lead producer said something and responded to some of the comments is good. So we'll see what they do with it.
Escalating it will actually change something, but the whole discourse has been weird. Especially the people who've been saying, don't escalate this, don't make a video on this, don't spread it around because it might antagonize Renegade, and then they'll do something bad. I don't understand that line of thinking in the slightest. Something like this, it needs to be spread because ultimately Renegade needs the community. The community doesn't need Renegade. We've been keeping this game alive for 13 years. Yes, some new tiles would be nice, but Source exists. Source is basically a Heroscape ripoff. You could totally back that, get those tiles.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll let him finish here in a minute. Yeah. Speak, brother. Speak. Truth. Boom. All right, that was spot on, and you said it correctly, Tabletop Bro, and this is great. That Heroscape's been around for 13 years without anyone else. Yeah, we can keep doing it. We can do this on our own. You can take our money. But if you're going to take our money, you got to convince us that it's worth our money, right? The cries, right, from the community, as it were, directly impacted the Avalon Hill campaign. If you remember, massive, massive success in how we helped the team fix some of their crap. For example, when they first showed us the cards, we said, whoa. We said, holy. I don't know if you remember, but the Avalon Hill cards were atrocious. And I felt very strongly about the cards. I was like, no, that's what, there's a lot of things that make Heroscape unique. And yeah, it doesn't, they're not the best designed cards, right? They're not as much space. They're kind of wasted space.
yeah, the hex shape that they originally designed would give you more space for power. No, no, no. Like, give me the original card design. And the community spoke, and we said, yeah, no, we don't want rectangles. We don't want a full hex. We want the gnarly little edged hex, Heroscape cards. And we got them. We got them. And what's more, they had that ugly bright orange yellow, color for Revna. We said, that's ugly. What the heck is that? Like, I don't want bright orange. What is that color? And so they changed it to like a tan, like a dark tan. That's community feedback. That's providing constructive criticism from the community who understands and knows the game, and saying, hey, if you want us to buy this stuff, you here's some things you got to change. So that like he was just mentioning, like, absolutely, like, we need to continue to provide the feedback, because if we don't provide the feedback, we're not going to be happy with the product if we never say anything. The point is that criticism isn't meant to demean and make you feel horrible. It's meant to help. I wouldn't provide feedback unless I was very passionate about a game I wanted to do well. Right? So that's where it's all coming from. So a little bit weird. Well, let's move on.
Source is basically a Heroscape ripoff. You can totally back that, get those tiles, and then replace it.
Good point.
Use the C3V units. You can keep the game alive. You don't need the company. The company needs the community. And if they're treating the playtesters like this, it makes me incredibly nervous. Now, Renegade is currently on their holiday break, which must be nice, but hopefully Lee's escalating will actually lead to some sort of change, because currently what they're doing is unacceptable. At the bare minimum, they need to actually make some serious changes with playtesting. March 1st is like 3 months away. That's when they're going to open pre-orders, so the clock is ticking for them to get their shit together. As always, if there's anything new that pops up, I will let you know. If you want to know more about Heroscape,
okay,
right
so he's
here. I do a bunch of videos.
So, yeah. So that really good video. First of all, Tabletop Bro, well done. I think that was great. Yeah, 3 months. 3 months to figure out whatever the crap they're doing. I'm inclined to believe what I'm hearing here. If you're making big decisions like that, it's probably worth letting the people who are going to buy your game know about it. I don't know. Am I wrong? Do other games do that? I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. It's just the feeling like, they're trying to make money, right? So it's a business. They don't have to tell us, right? They can just say, we're going to do our thing and we're going to make our money. Like, that's what's crazy, is it's like, they don't have to tell us anything. They're not required. Like, technically they don't owe us anything. Technically, right? Like, I'd like to think they do, but they don't in a very real sense. They just decided they want to bring the game back. And if they are confident they can get new people to buy it, then they're going to do it, right? So, and it wouldn't be the first game company to do that either. There's a lot of game companies that have created, brought back, or changed the game to just try and, get a new player base. Anyway, but here's my thought, and this is my biggest thought. This is my insight, if you will, as to why they're doing what they're doing. And this comes from listening to Tabletop Bro. This comes from TOV podcast. They had Deroshan, who had a really good insight about just thinking about like what the game state is gonna be like. Something to keep in mind is that Heroscape is a very good game system. That game system has existed for a very long time and has been used in multiple branches and IPs already. Now, I want to be very clear about what I'm insinuating here. I think it makes sense that they would playtest and redesign the Heroscape Age of Annihilation game in order to keep it self-contained. What I mean by that is you have Heroscape, I'll call it Core. Heroscape Core, right? Heroscape Core is the game system Heroscape. What we have, Valhalla, right? We proved that the game system worked. Then, a branch off of that tree was Marvel, right? Now, another branch off of that tree over here that we know was confirmed, never released, was Star Wars. They had Star Wars designs ready to print and ship. We know that's confirmed. Now, is Star Wars on Valhalla? No. It's its own IP. Is Marvel on Valhalla? No. It's its own IP. Do they operate off the same game system? 100%. Are they compatible with the original game system? 100%. So is Age of Annihilation going to be compatible? They say 100%. But is it going to be compatible? Not sure about that point, right? So, what I mean by that, Marvel is it's its own thing, right? You've got 300, 350, 250 point units, just crazy, right? The point system is just different, right? Crazy stats, really strong. Some are OP, some not so much, right? Not the same generals. They have little symbols for flying and super strength, and it's different, but it's the same game system. Now, we don't know anything about the Star Wars game system, the game for Heroscape, but it was off the same game system. Now, Jedi wouldn't be in Valhalla because it's its own IP. Star Wars wouldn't want Star Wars to be on Valhalla because Star Wars is its own IP, same as Marvel is its own IP. They can't be part of the core because they're their own branch, working off the same game system, but their own IP, their own thing. Now, Arena of the Planeswalkers. Arena of the Planeswalkers is the most recent case of this. You had a third branch, right? You had Magic the Gathering that literally used the same rulebook. You compared them side by side, same rulebook, same Heroscape game system, same Heroscape tiles and hexes, and it like verbiage, like almost verbatim. They added a card aspect to it, but I would consider that an additional branch. It was his own IP. It was based off of the Heroscape game system, but it was its own. It was its own branch, and it was somewhat compatible. You could technically play them together. It was a little bit different. It didn't have order markers, and you had cards. So I mean, you had to finagle a few things, but at its base level, it was doable. So, what am I insinuating? I'm insinuating that Age of Annihilation, if this is the core, Heroscape core, Age of Annihilation, is going to be another branch. I'm insinuating that Age of Annihilation might actually be a self-contained game outside of Heroscape core. And to some of the points that Tabletop Bro made, is that if you have new players walk into the game store, they see Heroscape and say, whoa, this game looks cool. Oh, there's a tournament going on. Sweet. Hey, can I play? Yeah, it starts in 30 minutes. Oh, sweet. How much do I need to buy in? Oh, $50 for this pack. Oh, awesome. So they grab $50. Hey, I got this new game. They crack it open. They sit down to play a tournament. And they can play. Because everyone else is playing with the same units. Now what happens when they sit down, they just spent $50 on this new game. And across from the table, someone's got Raylan, and Krav and Death Reavers. They've never seen those units. Those units have been around for 13 years. Those are A-tier units. Okay, well, what are they? How do I get them? On eBay, right? Right? So the whole point is you want to avoid that negative interaction. So what do you do about it? Well, from a very baseline perspective, Renegade has already told us they're not reprinting OG Heroscape. They're not. So it's still going to be rare. It's still going to be very difficult to gain, especially for new players. What else have they told us? It's backwards compatible. The rule set, the game system that we know of. What else have we found out? The designs have been redesigned. Now, it makes sense based off of my, what do you call it, hypothesis. It makes sense that they would gut the designs. That they would say, hey, we got 70 designs from Avalon Hill, but they're all backwards compatible, and they all synergize with old stuff. Do you remember a few of those, abilities? What's the bear guy that bonds with Death Chasers? It makes them super strong. The dwarf that bonds with the dwarves. I mean, they're best with the old original Heroscape units. So if I'm going to play with the new Age of Annihilation units, but I need the original Heroscape that's not being printed, then how do I play with the new units effectively? So it would make sense if Renegade comes in, takes the designs, guts them of their synergy, changes them, moves them, and synergizes them in a self-contained Age of Annihilation pack or packs, so that Age of Annihilation is its own synergy. So if you have beasts, right? We know about beasts. Maybe they say, actually, we don't like that it synergizes with Aerogruts because it's going to be too good with Aerogruts, or we don't want it bonding with Aerogruts because then people need Aerogruts, and Aerogruts aren't being printed, and we want them to buy the new stuff, not the old stuff. So maybe they just change it and say, well, the new class is going to be Monster, or Apparition, or something. Something that is entirely different, that doesn't have a current synergy list, and can remain self-contained in Age of Annihilation without being balanced against original Heroscape. And then it makes sense, because they're not reprinting your original Heroscape. They're only playtesting it against itself. They're not playtesting with original Heroscape. And the designs have been changed and gutted. So, does that sound like, that sounds like, to me, my hypothesis might not be far off. Is you have the Heroscape core with all these different branches that have already existed of how the Heroscape system has applied to different IPs. Now, Age of Annihilation is supposed to be based in Valhalla with an extension of the Heroscape lore, but it doesn't have to be, right? They own the rights now and the license, so they can change that, and they can make Age of Annihilation its own self-contained game that, while technically can be played with original, it's not going to be, intentionally synergistic or balanced, maybe with the original. The other thing, too, is think about how Magic operates their tournaments now. I think Magic, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a Standard or Legacy or something like that, where basically one format where you can play any of the cards in the history of Magic. And then there's this other format where within, the last 3 years or packs or whatever it is, you can only play the most recent packs. And so what that does is it keeps the game living and breathing. So yes, you have to keep buying the new stuff, but it keeps everyone playing with the same, I guess not chance, but the same skill level with the new stuff. So what that means is the guy that's been around for 40 years can't have this super rare, super expensive card come in and OP and just smash you, and you never even had a chance because you weren't even alive when that card existed. That makes sense, right? They do that in order to avoid issues of balance over the course of the entire game, over the decades of content. Now, Heroscape's a little different. We haven't been around that long. We don't have that many cards or designs, but it's a similar feeling, right? They're rare, very rare units. They cost a lot, so if you're going to bring people into the game, you want to avoid that experience where someone has to deal with a Raylan, Rats, and Krav. So what do you do, right? And so that's just something that I think we have to keep in mind is Renegade's in a very tough position. They have to make some hard decisions. I don't like those decisions, and I don't like even necessarily the way they're going, because I think the Avalon Hill team and the War Council were doing right by the community. They were creating new enough designs that new people could come in and be excited about it, but also creating some new, fresh designs that invigorated and excited us to use them with the original Heroscape. And that's the balance you have to strike. And I'm concerned that that's not what Avalon Hills or Renegade is doing. So my hypothesis is that they're running it as its own self-contained branch of the original Heroscape core. We'll see. because based off of everything we're hearing, that's what makes sense to me. But I don't know. Who knows anymore? Anyway, I've been talking long enough. If you've listened this long, then good on you. I'm just a blabbing, thinking my own thoughts. This is all just kind of coming off the cuff. So anyway, that's what I've been thinking. It's late here. I need to get some sleep. Yeah. Leave your comments. I'm interested to hear what you think. I think that's everything. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.